Noticed that people really feel uncomfortable around me when I bring up the subject. Most people really just prefer to avoid the subject altogether, to sort of avoid it, neglect it, push it away, not engage with it. By the way, look at my earrings. Okay, let me see. My beautiful friend Ashley made these, like a pregnant lady, and I'm in love. I have the most talented friends. Thank you, Ashley. Hi all, ciao visiem. So, very obviously, since we live in a patriarchy and we live under capitalism, pretty much anything and everything to do with pregnancy, childbirth, raising children, women, is generally treated as lesser than, as nuisance, an obstacle, and so on. And generally we treat pregnant people like shit. The general vibe is, yeah, okay, you know, get this thing over with, don't complain too much, and then hurry, hurry, hurry back to work, okay? Where real work happens. Anything to do with women, with reproduction, with unpaid labor, which pregnancy, delivery, birth, and raising children is labor. All of that stuff is really seen as like just this like side thing that we have to deal with, you know. We know this by looking at the non-existent maternity leave in the US, or the maternity leaves that we have here being so ridiculously short that literally puppies by law have to stay longer with their moms than women. You know, we treat women less than dogs, as lesser than dogs. If we look at any workspace and the fact that they provide no accommodations for pregnant women, the fact that workspaces in general, all of them are designed around male bodies and cater to male bodies, pretty much anything in our society. So really it is no surprise that we do not know how to, we often don't know how to interact with pregnant people, what to say, what not to say. We feel sort of awkward. And I just want to emphasize this very early on, that this is not, you know, our fault. As I said, it's how we've set up society. It's normal that we would, you know, feel some type of discomfort, or like we don't know what to do, what to say, and so on. And now that I'm pregnant, I've noticed this so much. I've noticed that people really feel uncomfortable around me when I bring up the subject. Most people really just prefer to avoid the subject altogether, to sort of avoid it, neglect it, push it away, not engage with it. And of course, mind you, I'm not talking about my family and close friends here. I have an extremely supportive community, but I'm talking about like co-workers, neighbors, acquaintances, friend adjacent people, sort of this like larger society at large that we interact with. Obviously, all of these people know that I'm pregnant, so this isn't like a, you know, they're not guessing. They're not uncomfortable because they're unsure. They know. And this comes out in many ways. Primarily, it's just this feeling that you can sort of feel the discomfort and awkwardness they feel around the subject. It's also sort of this thing that they'll never ask me, you know, how are you feeling? How's the pregnancy going? Like that, like absolutely. I will never be asked anything about that. And part of it is also me being in academia, where it's like extra stigmatized. But as I'll talk about it later, from talking to other women, this is a pretty common experience. And then if it does come up sort of in conversation, which it comes up in conversation often because pregnancy affects every single area of my life right now. Like, I don't know, we'll be talking, some coworker will be complaining about seasonal allergies, and I'll say, oh my God, yes, like I'm using this medicine right now because for the first time in my life, I'm having like stuffy nose and seasonal allergies due to pregnancy. And no one will ever, like everyone will disregard the pregnancy part. Like they will not engage with that at all and just sort of move on. So I'm trying to say here is not that people aren't like extremely excited for you, or that they're not letting you talk about being pregnant for hours on end. Like that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about people very actively and intentionally avoiding any conversation at all surrounding pregnancy. And as I said, given our society, this makes perfect sense. I did a little survey on my Instagram and I received a couple of messages of people saying that they simply don't know what to say or what to ask to pregnant people, that they actually would love to have these conversations, but that they often don't know what's appropriate, what's inappropriate, what to say, what not to say. And that's why I'm doing this video. And also the reason I find this topic to be so important and significant and something that I find really troublesome is because for any person who is pregnant, going through that pregnancy is the most important thing in your life at the time, including you if you may be pregnant in the future. When that happens, that is going to be the most important thing in your life at that time. I mean, we're literally creating life. Like, I think about it from the moment I wake up throughout the day, as it affects everything that I do, to the moment I go to bed, and then the 7 times a night that I have to wake up to pee. You know, it's something that your whole life revolves around. So to feel like you have to avoid the topic or to feel like it makes people uncomfortable, it does not feel good at all. A few people also messaged me on Instagram saying that they've had an ex-friend or somebody they knew who was pregnant who actually did not want to talk about their pregnancy at all. And that can certainly be the case. Like, everybody is completely different. How much people want to share, what they want to share, if they want to share, it's going to depend from person to person. But I can almost guarantee you that most people want to talk about their pregnancy, which is why almost every single pregnancy book that I've read has had, at some point in the book has said, you know, during your pregnancy, make sure to surround yourself with other pregnant women because they're the only ones who are going to let you talk about your pregnancy for as long as you need to. I mean, as I said, we're creating life. Everything about my physical and emotional life and everything has been surrounded solely around this pregnancy for now 7 months. So it's only natural that you want to share this hopefully positive, maybe negative experience, but overall it's a life-changing experience. I mean, nothing in my life so far could possibly compare to this, to the significance of this. With that being said, I also think that some of the women who do not want to talk, and I say women, but of course, like, anyone can get pregnant, any uterus owner who does not want to talk about their pregnancy, and not all, but some, I think, may not want to do so because we as a society treat pregnant people and pregnancy as such a nuisance, as an almost like a shameful thing, that is an outcome of that. And lastly, this topic is also so important to me because I received a ton of messages from mom relating to what I was describing and saying that that is exactly how they felt during their pregnancy, that this was like the most important thing that they've ever done, and that other people were uncomfortable or did not want to talk about it, and simply that they were not given the space to talk about this, to share this ever. And that has actually like deep emotional effects and consequences, and it's just really, really sad that that is the experience of many pregnant people. So let's learn. First, let's go over a really quick list of things not to say so that we can just get that out of the way. Number 1, comments of the pregnant person's size. I think this is just such a simple thing that, like, pregnancy or not, you should not be commenting on someone's size. I know that I personally experienced it a lot because so many people were telling me that I'm so small, my belly's so small, my bump is so small, and I understand the place it was coming from, where they almost thought it as a compliment because they're not saying that I'm too fat or too big. But it's not a compliment. In fact, like the first trimester, I was losing weight and I really struggled with gaining weight with how sick I was. So it was a constant source of anxiety for me. So basically, just either way, just don't comment on it. Don't. Number 2, unsolicited advice on anything. Breastfeeding, labor, co-sleeping, whatever thing. Literally, like, unsolicited advice. Did I ask you? No. So there's no need for that. Touching the belly. I think this is like the one cliche thing we see in movies and TV shows the most, where like pregnant person is walking and everyone's just like trying to touch the belly. I personally have not experienced that. I don't know if people actually still do that, but very obviously pregnant or not, I'm pretty sure you don't want strangers touching your belly without asking you. So yeah, let's not do that. This is my favorite one, as in this is the one I hate hearing the most. Oh, get ready to not sleep anymore. Enjoy these last couple of nights of sleep that you can get, you know, get ready to be up all night, get ready to never relax and never rest. Bruh, I cannot tell you how much I hate hearing that. First of all, literally every single pregnant person or parents to be, any person in the world knows that newborns don't sleep through the night. Like, we know that. So what is this comment accomplishing other than drawing attention and emphasizing something that's negative and going to be really difficult? Like, what is the point of that? Okay, and then asking people if the baby was wanted or unwanted, or were they trying to conceive or not. So for me personally, clearly, like, I don't find this question to be anything, mostly because I don't feel shame in my life decisions. I don't think there's any stigma in either of those options. I made a video in which I talked about, you know, whether it was wanted or unwanted, were we trying, planning or not, and all that type of stuff. So for me personally, I feel very comfortable talking about that. With that being said, this is not something I would ever ask a pregnant person, for sure. Ooh, this is my second least favorite. My cousins, aunts, neighbors, friends, whatever, had a really traumatic, awful birth experience. Here's what happened. We do not want you to share some awful, traumatic experiences of birth that you've heard from somebody somewhere. Like, I don't know what goes through people's minds. Like, why would you think that I, who is about to go through this experience of giving birth, which is often a life and death experience, would want to hear that? Like, how would having this in my mental space be helpful in any way? Please explain. This is actually something that for me, as someone who's preparing for a natural home birth, has been a huge, huge thing. Like, protecting my mental space and protecting my energy and not letting these stories in is extremely important. We already all have to do so much unlearning with the conditioning that we've received around birth, and I talk about it in my videos on hospital birth and midwives and why there's so much profit on showing traumatic birth on TV. So we've all been exposed to so much of that. It's already hard to get rid of that. There's no need to add into it at all. Okay, now moving on to things that you can say, things that we want to hear. So number one, ask us how we're feeling and hold space for us. That's literally it. As I said, from all the messages I got from other moms, the issue is sort of that, you know, when society and when everyone around you is refusing to give you space to talk about it, when people are so uncomfortable around the topic and are just trying to avoid it, you don't have space to talk about it ever. And so when you are around a pregnant person who's supposedly a friend, a coworker, an acquaintance or something, you have this opportunity to give them a tiny bit of space to just talk about it and share whatever they want to share. So let them lead the conversation, you know, see what they want to talk about and just hold space for them. Obviously, this is a social human interaction, so there is no formula that applies here. You need to read the room, the vibes, the feeling, and so on. Just to open that door and hold that space, that's it. Express excitement for the journey that we're about to embark on and provide us with encouragement and positivity. As excited as we are being pregnant, probably a lot of us are a little bit scared too. You know, this is a huge thing. This is like a massive thing. So any type of encouragement is much appreciated. The same way that if you have a friend starting grad school, PhD, a new job, moving to a new country, starting a new relationship, you would give them encouragement and say, you can do this, you know, you're amazing and you got this, and so on. It's sort of the same thing. Okay, so my personally favorite thing that I love hearing the most is, you're going to be a great mama. You're going to be a great parent because insert X quality that person has. Hearing that is like, it's like giving life to my heart, my soul. Like, it's just the greatest feeling ever, and I'm sure most of us want to hear that. I'm so happy you get to have this life-changing experience. just hearing genuine excitement and happiness that people have for you is such an amazing thing. I think this is a sentence that we should practice to say more, pregnancy or not, in general. Just being happy for people, for whatever they are going through. Those were just a couple of really simple things. I did want to note that I did not talk here about ways to support pregnant people, which is could be a topic of its own. You know, rule of thumb is basically like do things for us and be proactive about it. It's more just about like everyday social interactions. And I also want to emphasize that before I got pregnant, I had no idea how to talk to pregnant people. I did not know how to talk to people who have kids, just no idea. I used to think that there are like people who have kids and they have this like thing of knowledge that we don't, like that's just that I don't have any of that knowledge. So anything that I would ask or say to them would sound so dumb, it would almost be offensive. And even though I would always be so curious and I would really want people, you know, like my friends or acquaintances who have friends who have kids, I would want them to share and tell me about the kids, and you know, I would want to encourage that conversation. I absolutely did not know how to do that. Mind you, I have no siblings, I have no cousins, I have never been around a pregnant person. I've never been around babies. Like first time I saw a diaper was when we got our diaper box from our registry delivered last week. But let me let you in on a little secret. As with most things in the world, most people don't know what they're doing until they're doing it. Oftentimes, even while we're doing it. So yes, right now you can ask me about anything, about breastfeeding and potty training and the different hormonal changes that happen during pregnancy, about episiotomies and perineal massages and epidurals, and I'm an expert, like I'll tell you things. But 6 months ago, do you think I knew any of this? No, nothing. And no one expects you to know any of this stuff if you are someone who doesn't have children. And I'm saying this more so because that is what I needed to hear. Like in order for me to have a healthy conversation with someone who is a parent or a pregnant person, I really needed to be reassured that I'm not going to be judged over like their lack of knowledge about the subject. And I can just honestly tell you, like, no one expects anyone to know this shit. We all learn as we go. And you know, this is actually how learning happens. Like, I wish I was able to have more of these conversations, and I wouldn't have felt awkward to have these conversations, because then I would already know so much more prior to this. In my Instagram story, I also used the example of grief as something that we as a society are just really bad with dealing with, like grief and loss. I realized this a couple of years ago, that whenever a person would share with me and say that, you know, they lost their father, their mother, their child, or their husband, someone in their lives, I would not know what to say. Like, I would just become awkward. If I knew they had lost someone, I would totally try to avoid the subject. Like, and I realized that, wow, shit, like, I don't know how to deal with these situations. Like, there's not a sentence in my mind that I can put together that seems like a good thing to say. And what I did was I went online and started learning about it. I researched, you know, what kind of things should I be saying, what kind of things people who've lost someone want to hear or want to be done. And surprisingly, the one thing that I found most when I was doing this research and learning about how to hold space for people who are grieving and experiencing loss is that almost every single article about it says, if they want to, let them talk about it. And I think that is so important, because most of us just sort of assume or have this attitude of like, oh my God, let me switch the subject as quick as possible. Like, let me move on for this. Like, it's so painful for them. Like, they might cry. They don't want to think about this, you know, like, let's just avoid this, go around this, and so on. But the reality is that if you've experienced grief or loss and everybody's doing that for you, you know, everyone is just tiptoeing around, avoiding and, you know, like not engaging with this, you have no space to share or process or say anything that's actually really harmful, like really, really bad. Yeah, basically I went on this journey and learned, and now I am so much better with dealing with people who are going through grief and loss and know how to hold space and what kind of things to say and so on. So basically, let's all learn to be better human beings towards each other. Let's love each other more. Let's hold space for each other. Let's recognize that childbirth and pregnancy is a really sacred and important experience and a life-giving act. It's God's work, literally. I'm doing God's work, and treat it as such and value it as such. That's it. But yeah, comment below with any questions or your own experiences. If you have been pregnant, what you like to hear, what you did not like to hear, or any questions to me. I'm an open book about this, so there's no inappropriate questions at all. Like and subscribe to the channel for more content. And yeah, love you.